And we are back. It is Wake Up Woodward. Thank you guys for choosing to kick off today with the Wool Crew. Shout out to our brother Broder. He will be back with us tomorrow. We got that dude Justin here. Intern Chase will be back soon as well. We got KG on the soundboard. Woodward Sports MVP, JB Smooth running TD. The vet of the network, Flannel Sam. It's your boy Brandon Dent, a.k.a. Detroit Kool-Aid, your credentialed Pistons reporter and writer for the network. And we got the legend on the line, and it is time for our Woodward Pistons segment. So you guys already know we got to get the drum roll going. Let's rock. Hey, yo. Shout out and welcome to the legend, Detroit News, Rod Beard. Brother, as always, how are you doing? And take it away with Rod's thoughts.
Olympics, man. Wardell Stephen Curry.
Yes.
Oh,
Build that
Chef
man
Curry,
a statue somewhere.
In fuego.
That dude, that last 3 minutes of the gold medal game was some of the most exciting kind of shot making that you want to see. And in a scenario where you got KD on the court and Bron on the court, it was just good to see that those guys could figure out who the hot hand was. And for people who want to talk about anything else, real basketball players know who the hot hand is. Get it to that man and let him cook. And the last one that he hit, the fadeaway going to his right,
It's crazy.
is like who
It's
even
art,
attempts
bro.
Double coverage.
I know who attempts that shot, but it was insane. But that was just exciting basketball to watch, to see that they were able to figure it out. And I think last week we talked about it. I was saying, hey, they haven't had to lean on one guy to be that dude. And in different games, they've had to do that, where Bron was a guy, Book was a guy, Steph has done it twice in this tournament. So I think sometimes you just have to figure that stuff out. And they got challenged, they got pushed to the brink, but they were able to get out with the gold medal in a very, very exciting performance.
And Ryan, I'm glad you brought up the Olympics. It's been a topic of discussion on some of the shows on this network. Do you agree with LeBron getting the Olympics MVP award in the medal game? Some people, the LeBron haters, they are absolutely outraged. A lot of people felt that Steph should have got it because of his performance in that said game. What say you?
I mean, I can see Steph. I would probably have given it to Steph because what he did in that game, and there was another game where he had like 36 or something. But Bron was steady. He had the triple-double. He didn't have to have a game where he had 30, but he did the other stuff. He filled in where he needed to be a complete basketball player. I think it should have been Steph, but I'm not going to complain about Bron getting it.
So you're telling me that Steph got Andre Iguodala again, huh? But I agree, man. Steph, and it's awesome to see these guys work, and you can tell when they're just kind of in just ball mode, where it has nothing to do with like set plays or scripted plays. And when you got the best players in the world, Lindsey Hunter was talking about this, you know that you can rely on when that basketball instinct just takes over, where the egos have just gone away, because it's just beautiful basketball and it's poetry in motion. And man, I'm going to be for real with you. One of the things that I've loved seeing in basketball the most over the last few years, and we know it wasn't Pistons basketball, which we'll get into, but it was Steph and LeBron two-man game.
That pick and pop, man, a thing of beauty.
Oh, my God.
Imagine if they played
together.
together. I'm just saying, imagine if they played together. It'd be unreal.
It was beautiful, man. And you're talking about two high IQ players and two players. And when you mix that with a player of Steph's kind of just, he's elite. Is he going to miss? No, probably not. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's all LeBron James needs as the type of facilitator and connector he is. And, man, we got to get into this Pistons conversation unless you had anything else on the Olympics, Rod.
I mean, has LeBron really ever been with a shooter?
He hasn't.
Hey,
not one of Steph's level.
Boobie Gibson, I will never forget it.
Boobie Gibson.
But other than that, probably not.
He's had D-Wade. He's had other all-star players, but he's never had a shooter like that. And, I mean, Steph is one of one. We know that. But just to see that, and the last point I was going to make is I think KD said in those last few minutes, they weren't even calling plays. They were just, we coming down and we're going to figure it out. We know what we do. We got the players. And again, in those last 4 minutes, it was KD up top. Like, for real, KD, that team was silly. And even if you were going weak side, you got Book on that weak side. So in terms of the talent and what they were able to do, that was just impressive to watch.
It was cool to see the chemistry just grow. And in the ways that when the stakes raised, you could tell the egos just went away. And those guys were just like, well, feed the hot in shape. I want to go hoop again because this guy sounds like a coach. And he said some stuff in this interview with Richard Jefferson that really had my ears perked up because there's some of the questions we've had, and we got some of those answers at his introductory press conference. But did anybody get a chance? Did you get a chance to see that interview, Rod? Because I took some thorough notes here, man. I got some notes. I'm gonna be able to run through them as fast as possible. But starting with, you got to start at the top. His decision for wanting to be here, and whose front office this was, man, and that to me, it was like music to my ears. It was what ultimately attracted him here to the situation. I know that some people thought he wanted to take a year off, and he said there was no opportunity, but that there is this drive inside of him to be a competitor that just doesn't go away, and that his family supports that. Like his wife supports that. They told this story about how much this means to him and how much he buys into each organization that he's been a part of, to the point that RJ was trying to push him on giving some, hey, talk about some of your accomplishments in the past. Yeah, I'm in Detroit. Yeah, but you've done. He's like, look, bro, I'm literally in Detroit. That was somewhere else. I don't even want to mention it. And he pushed him, and he eventually talked about some of these things because it showed the foundation of who J.B. Bickerstaff has been as a coach, at least recently. Started with the Cleveland Cavaliers, 19 games, young team, influx. Some people thought the roster was probably a mismatch, and we know just the leaps and bounds that they took and the growth that they got, that they made in his tenure there. And now he's here with the Detroit Pistons. I just wanted your quick takeaways, just because I know you've gotten some opportunity to speak with J.B. Bickerstaff as well, Rod, just on J.B. Bickerstaff.
Yeah, I think he's a seasoned enough coach, and in the previous iterations, we were talking about, well, maybe they were getting an assistant coach that would get a good chance here. This is a roster that you need a guy who has some experience in putting together these kinds of rebuilds. And not to say the assistants didn't, but we've seen it with JB, and we know what he can bring and the expertise with that. But it's just, I want somebody who's managed a roster, who's been through some of this stuff. Cleveland is a good example of that, who's worked with a young big, like an Evan Mobley, that can pair that together, and a playmaker now with Cade Cunningham. You can piece all that stuff together, and it's not theoretical. It's something you've done in the past. So I think that's the biggest key here.
Yep, and I'm going to get into the players as well, but just really quick to kind of wrap up what was going on at the top. He did say that Trajan Langdon impressed him early on as they discussed the possibility of him becoming the next Pistons coach. He said he was confident, this is the quote, that he was going to lead us and help us build something special. You know that Trajan has a plan, and he's confident in it, and he gave us confidence in that plan. He can execute the vision, which gave him comfort, J.B. Bickerstaff comfort, with the other front office personnel. He named each one of them as well. And he said that these guys have respect around the league, which prompted Richard Jefferson to say, whoa, Trajan Langdon is a beast. Trajan Langdon has been grinding and building up to this point for over a decade, and he's commanded the respect of his peers and others in the league. And the sense that I got from that portion of the interview was that this is completely Trajan Langdon's front office and nobody else's, which means you're going to have that one voice, that one direction. And JB said that if he was going to coach, this was something that was important to him. He also said it was a total no-brainer when Tom Gores told him that he was willing to do whatever to make this thing successful. And then, obviously, he looked at the roster and the young talent, and it just made him feel comfortable. He says that rebuilding and helping young guys develop is one of his strengths, which we kind of saw a little bit of when he was in Cleveland. At least from your perspective with J.B. Bickerstaff, this thing seems night and day between Monty Williams, who came in here and literally at the first training camp said, this young roster is not something he's used to coaching up. And you got J.B. Bickerstaff here saying, no, this excites me. This is what I do. This is my reputation around the league. Just how much of a difference does wanting to be here and wanting this roster, wanting this opportunity, how much of a difference do you think that makes for the Detroit Pistons this year?
No, it's going to make a difference in how he coaches and the enthusiasm that he brings every day to the gym, that you understand the situation. And coming away from Phoenix, Monty was just sort of, the expectations were already high because of his reputation. And we've talked about his personal situation coming into this, that he didn't really want to coach. He had to be convinced to coach. Mm-hmm. And I don't think you had to convince JB to come in here and do that. He's going to run through a wall, and he's going to be ready on day one to be able to do what he needs to do to turn this team around. So I think that's going to be the big difference is the attitude, what he brings, knowing what type of work ethic is required to turn something around quickly. Those types of things are going to matter very, very immediately in what they're trying to do.
Yeah, and he did say that he's someone who cares deeply about the job that he's going to do. He cares deeply about the people he works with every day as well. He has some personal connections as well. So he doesn't take lightly being the head coach of the Detroit Pistons. He's going to do whatever he can to make it successful. He said this year the expectations, though, are about developing an identity. He doesn't want that will play. And he mentioned Tobias Harris being a really, really, really good player. Richard Jefferson also stated that he believes Tobias is going to contribute greatly to this Detroit Pistons team, and I think that he might be a little underrated here in Detroit, Rod.
Yeah, but it's just what do you need him to do? And if this roster can gel and be a little cohesive, you might not need Tobias to be a 25 a night scorer.
Right.
You can balance that out with having Cade get more to his level, setting up Tobias, setting up Malik Beasley, setting up some of the other pieces that they're bringing in. And I think the youth piece is a critical part of that, too, is that you're not looking for your young guys to be the leaders and the leading scorers and to do everything in their first and second year. That's been what's hamstrung this franchise for the past few years is now we said it, they have to go and get veterans in free agency. They went out and did that. Now, how does this thing gel and come together? Cade is your face of your franchise, and he's going to have to do a lot of it. But now you have some other veterans who can carry the flag for you.
Yeah, that's such a perfect transition because I was going to share JB's exact quote on who Tobias Harris is. You got to think about it. This is a guy who's been coaching in the league against Tobias Harris for a long time. So when he does speak, that carries some weight. He says that, it's who you add. And Tobias was the perfect piece for us. He says, I give Trajan a ton of credit for getting it done. Tobias is a great human being. The character of the voice of the player using it is what matters. Young guys are more willing to listen to him. And he said, and he still plays too. And so when he said that, I instantly thought about Taj Gibson, who, though his voice was great, he wasn't someone out there on the court. So how is he going to show you how to do everything? He can give you great advice and motivate you, but Tobias, he said, is a guy who's still going to give people buckets in the fourth quarter, still going to give you some defense, still going to give you, like you said, some consistent play and be able to show the guys how to do this. And Richard Jefferson mentioned the fact that young players, they don't know how to manage the emotional roller coaster of the NBA. He said, old guys, vets, we just get grumpy, but we know how to play through it. And he said that's something that Tobias, as well as the other vets, is going to help this young team with immensely, especially Cade Cunningham.
Yeah, I mean, it's vets know what it feels like to be tired of losing. Cade has lost a lot, but I don't know if he's tired of losing the same way that a 10-year vet is going to be. So that's your Tim Hardaway. That's your Tobias Harris. Those guys understand what it is year to year that you get in the playoffs and what it takes to get in the playoffs, but the work ethic that you have to have every day when you go in the gym and the personality. I think Tobias is going to be very, very good for Cade because they're similar in a lot of ways in their humility and the way that they go about stuff and their hunger to win. But I think all of this is going to come together. And again, I don't want to put numbers on this. If they win 30 games, I'm very happy, and I call it a successful season. But you've got to look at what it looks like on the court. It's the eye test that tells you what this is.
Yep, and just to kind of round this thing out, he talked about Cade Cunningham and Jalen Duren, what he thought of them as players. He did say that he believes both of those guys have superstar potential, but ultimately he wants to get the team to kind of that star status that the Going to Work Pistons as a team achieved, though nobody would call them individually superstars. And it was interesting because Richard Jefferson and J.B. Bickerstaff instantly looked at each other and were like, but there were some superstars. There were some stars. Like, it's cool to see that the guys in the league knew what that Going to Work Pistons team was. But on Cade Cunningham, real quick, he said Cade's size and ability to get to a spot and never get sped up and be even killed through the situations is something that makes him a good leader. He said he's the guy you can tell his teammates just want to be around because he has the ability to make them better. With his size, you can play him at 3 different positions, and he can make plays and create his own shot in the fourth quarter as well. That playing at 3 different positions and being that connector, Rod, that makes my ears perk up a little bit.
Yeah, because it tells you that what his rep is around the league, because a lot of people haven't seen him a lot or played against him a lot. But JB knows, and everybody knows what Cade's, and as much as people want to criticize Cade for not being able to do whatever, you got to look at the injury history, and you got to look at what he's done in college and what his resume is. Like, this is what this dude does. So if you're looking at critical fourth quarter possessions, you don't automatically have to go to Tobias because you don't have any other option. You know Cade is your guy, and he can get the job done there. So I think this is all a good read and a good understanding of what your roster is, and that's what you want to hear from a coach, is understanding what your guys' strengths are and how you're going to utilize them.
Bro, like, think about it. You talking about Cade Cunningham in the fourth quarter, pick and rolls with Jalen Duren. You got Tobias on one wing. You got Fontecchio on another wing. That sounds a lot better than what they've had in the past. And you know that those guys have a great opportunity to actually be there in the court rather than being hobbled. Like we knew Bojan was going to be a flamethrower. Keeps Isaiah Stewart, for me, from being a surefire, bona fide starter, though I love everything else he brings to the table. But furthermore, with Jalen Duren, he says that there's a whole lot more there. He's really ball skilled, and we don't see a lot of it. We haven't seen a lot of it in the past. Now, you know that when we're at the practices, we see Jalen Duren working on those ball skills, handling, dribbling, and doing some pretty cool things as it relates to being the versatile player that they mentioned he could be on draft night. And he said he can rebound the ball well, push in transition, makes plays in transition well as also on Jalen Duren.
And he's 20. He's 20. He still hasn't figured out what he is just yet and how to be the best version of that. When he gets 22, 25, and we start talking about that, and he's improved incrementally over those years, then we know what he can be. And I don't want to bring up the Andre Drummond sort of thing, but that's sort of what you looked at with Drummond, is he didn't figure it out for a couple of years. He became a very good rebounder, but he had to figure some other things out. And about being a big in the NBA, that's one of the harder positions to figure it out.
Yep. And just to wrap this thing up, J.B. Bickerstaff and Richard Jefferson, they both gave their impression of Detroit and their opinion on the city. J.B. Bickerstaff said, man, there's so much more about Detroit than people know about. And this got me fired up. He said people love to spread the negative, but Detroit is an awesome city. We're looking forward to being part of it. And he talked about the charitable contributions they want to do, and just how they love to make sure that whatever city they're in, that they're fully a part of it. And Richard Jefferson, he said that the Detroit Pistons at the Palace of Auburn Hills during the going to work era were a top 5 crowd of all time for his. Top 5. Yo, shout out to you guys, man. That was an epic one. He was like, bro, you couldn't go in. If you went in there, you knew it was going to be sold out for like 8 years straight. He said Detroit never turns on their team. He said Knicks fans do. Philly fans do. He said, I know it's a tough stretch, but he was like, man, Piston fans. He said they're always in there supporting their team. And I'm like, but you guys are not that good. But you know what? Hey, it's the heart of Detroit. I see you back there, Stick. He said it always stuck with me that Detroit and their fan base, they care. They really care deeply about their team. He said their love for the Pistons, it's intense. Richard Jefferson. He said, bro, I played them in the heat of the battle. He was on the Nets. He was like, I played them in the heat of the battle, bro. And so he was like, look, those guys, it stuck with me forever. He also talked about Anson's story, too. But, Rod, any last words on that?
No, I think that's why there's a Pistons podcast, because it is the fan base and their energy about the Pistons. And when they're not good, we know they're not good. We're not trying to pump them up and make them be something that they're not. We all recognize that. But my slant has always been, let's figure out what they need to do in order to get better. And you mentioned Tom Gores earlier and what that is. He does everything that you want him to do as an owner. Is it the right thing? No, but you're going to make mistakes in stuff that you do. Sometimes, even as an owner. Does Jerry Jones have it figured out? Did Mark Cuban have it figured out? No, they don't. So even the people that they say the Pistons should be like or sell the team to this person, it's not necessarily going to be that. Gores does what he needs to do. They have the facilities. The coaches know it when they come in. The front office people have said it in every single introductory press conference that they have that support and they understand that. So fans, it's going to take some time, but we're all looking to try to get this right.
That's well stated and well said, man. You know what? We're going to get into more of Jalen Duren, his breakdown next week. I am going to be able to talk to Ron Holland today at the Pistons Academy event. And hopefully when we talk to JB Bickerstaff, we get to get more insight on these young players. Like, I'm very curious on Jaden Ivey, the potential fit, as well as Asar Thompson. I am really, really curious. But, Rod, as always, thank you for your time, brother, giving us your look on the Detroit sports scene in general, as well as the Woodward Pistons podcast. I appreciate you, brother.
Yeah, and it's Beat Writer Christmas tomorrow. NBA schedule release tomorrow.
Hey, okay.
Thank you, Rod.
Yep,
Thank
thanks,
you,
Rod.
All right.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys. All right, bye.
Hey, peace out. Hey, the legend as always, Rod Beard, Detroit News Sports Editor-in-Chief. It's always a good time having him on. And you know what? JB Bickerstaff, he has me a lot more bricked up than Monty Williams did at the beginning of the season. A lot more.
No question about it. It's like night and day.
Night and day. Oh man. Who do we gotta talk about?
Absolutely.